Shiladitya Chaudhury is a Agile AVP. Is working currently working as AVP with the Quality Kiosk, and he's from Mumbai. He loves technology that drives change. He has worked he has worked with corporates and lending his expertise in designing that digital transformation journey. So he has worked across major insurance companies across India and Southeast Asia. He's a PMP certified professional, and he's currently working on blockchain, and is also an agile coach with expertise in engineering process consulting. He has deep interest in digital transformation, and is avid traveler and reader. His core expertise include fintech, edutech, digitization, agile consulting, program, etc. Welcome, Shiladitya.
Thanks, Rohit. So, thanks for having me, guys, everyone. So, before we start, I'll just tell you the agenda for today, or the topic that we decided to speak about it, is basically agility, me and my team, or agile, me and my team. The reason why I chose this kind of a topic is predominantly because when we typically think of agile, generally, based on the rule, we generally start thinking about the processes, the ceremonies, the procedures, the charts, graphs. It all depends on what kind of a role that we are playing in the organization. We kind of view agile in that particular way. But if you go to the founding members of the who founded the agile as a process, agile as a methodology, the reason they gave the word agile is because it's basically comes from the word agility. So before we talk of agile, we should talk of agility first, because agility is what makes a team agile, what makes a person agile, and that's where the entire things comes in. So what I want to try to do is basically share some of the thoughts, share some of my learnings that I have experienced over the last few years, in terms of how agility helps me as a person and obviously the team. I'm pretty much sure that the agility part of it, or the agile part of it, the methodology part of it, it's something that most of us are aware of, most of us know about it. But more importantly, is how do you kind of evolve it? How do you kind of take it to the next level and kind of actually be an agile team rather than just following the processes? Processes are important, but by the very definition, process is something which has happened in the past based on which the process is designed. And agile or agility is something that is always forward looking. You have to basically look forward in terms of what kind of change will happen and change accordingly. So it's more than what a process is. Stating that, I'll move to the next slide. Is basically, I really love this simple mass, because a lot of things talk about the strength, a lot of things talk about the power and everything, but without agility, it's just a pure mass, and nobody likes pure mass. So what we are talking about is more on the how you can basically evolve it. What are the experiences that I have seen in terms of how team have been able to kind of navigate their ways through in terms of difficult times, in terms of, I would say, in during the routine times as well, because what you do in routine times helps you to if help you define what you do in difficult times. So it's basically taking the agile, what we do in our office, in our projects, and into our personal life in terms of how we have done it. Moving to it, this is a very simple, very effective word, or kind of a line that I really love. Agile is easy, but agile is also hard. So why we are trying to talk about agile is easy and agile is really hard? The reason we talk about agile is easy but agile is hard is because, as I say, a true agile team members derives much of the agility by relying on the tactic knowledge embedded in the team rather than the writing down knowledge in plans or the process. Now, agile also follows a certain process. Agile also follows certain things, but it's not basically follows the plan. You design the plan in a way that it can change. It is designed for a change. It is not designed to be a sacrosanct thing. It is designed for a change. And here also, it's kind of pretty much like a conversation, or kind of read somewhere. This again by nobody other than General Patton, and General Patton was one of the leading Second World War veteran, and he kind of gave a very good: no plan survives contact with the enemy. Here in our case, the enemy is not somebody from a different country or an opponent team. The enemy is the project itself. It will throw a lot of challenges, and I'm pretty sure all of you who have worked in projects, no project you can say that we have done this project. The entire plan which was created before the project started, it went according to the plan. Your timeline might have gone according to it. Your some of the parameters might have gone through it, but there have been a lot of challenges in between, which for which you have to take the challenges head on and kind of move and kind of adapt to it. And that's what the entire thing is about, agility. But who adapts to it? It's not it's not the entire company adapts to it only. The company, if you just go through those, answer those questions in those three whys. So the who adapts to those challenges, of course the team adapts to it. But who in the team does it? The team members done it. So who are the team members? The team members are nothing but people like you and me. So it all boils down to the agility that a person brings into the team. It's not about following the process, but it's at an individual level, what kind of an agility that a person brings to it, that defines the team agility. And that's what is critical when we are kind of starting off a project. It's not important that the person, what kind of a baggage that that person comes. It might be a fantastic skill that this person brings it might be a fantastic experience that person brings in. But if that person is not able to adapt, it's not is agile enough, then it's kind of defeats the purpose, because you never know how the project is going. And if your project is of a long duration, trust me, there are going to be things that you have never, nobody can even anticipate or envision it also. So you need to have people who are willing to take that extra risk, willing to basically change. And it's not that they will only look at their experience and say that have I done this thing in my past or not. Even if I have not done this in my past, that person should be adventurous enough to take that thing going forward. Stating that, next move forward is, again, it's a very important thing which follows what we were talking about it, about the attitude, about the person thing. It's basically what we talk of: hire for attitude, train for skills. Agile skills, as we said, agile is easy. In the previous slide, you can teach anybody what is an agile. It's like driving a car. When you first try to learn how to drive a car, you have, and especially like in Indian roads, you have to basically understand that you will go to a car driving school, and that particular person will basically tell you theories. You can train a person in all theories about driving a car. You can train a person about all theories about what agile is. And that person might score 100% out of 100% when you're giving an exam, because you have trained him. It's similar to the person giving a theory on a driving test. But the moment you put him on a kind of a busy road, it's a different ball game together. And the busy road is nothing but the project. The moment you a person put on the project, your real agility comes in from it comes out. You have to know how to navigate your car kind of narrow lanes and busy roads and everything. That's what it's all about it. And as I said, what we have learned is past, is experience. That's fine. But how can I change? That's future. So that's what matters at the end of the day. Stating with the next part is basically what is the why in a kind of a now this is creating important. I would say it is now very important. It was always important. Now we are talking about it more. Why we are talking about it more? Because now we have suddenly changed in the kind of if you look at it kind of in years, like if you look at it from a transition point of view, it took around 60, 70 years for people to migrate from the villages in the farmlands in most of the developed world, and in India too. Most of the people to move from the farmlands to the factories. So there was a mass migration that was happening from the villages to the town. It took 50, 60 years for this kind of a migration to take place. In the last 2, 3 years, similar 2, 3 months, similar kind of a migration has happened from office to home, and not everybody is going to go back. So there has been a huge transition, huge migration that has happened, which took 50, 60 years in our history, and it happened in 2, 3 months. So that's something that we consciously don't realize, but that's a drastic shift that has happened. And if this kind of a drastic shift has happened, obviously it is going to have a profound impact as we go along. Some of them we are able to comprehend, some of them we are not able to comprehend. What we are not able to comprehend is what kind of alerts us more, or kind of makes us more worry for someone will look at as an opportunity, whatever it is. But that is something that what we have to prepare for, and to be prepared for that, what's going to come, agility is required. Agility in terms of your skill, agility in terms of your attitude, agility in terms of your ability to uh, change maybe your location where you're staying, whatever. The entire gamut of agility is up in front of you to take it kind of and show what kind of a skill that you're coming with. So that's the key when we are talking about making an impact, making a team. And with that, let me share some example. I would share an example which is basically uh, a story that we kind of share. I went through in the last, I would say it's a couple of years back, but it kind of very much aligns to what we are going in right now. So this what happens. So we are following Agile for the last, let's say, 10 odd years, and it's been kind of phenomenally successful in certain customers where we are working with, where because when the environment that I've been used to working across my career is where I'm on mostly on the service industry side. So we've been working and servicing customers based on different geographies, different domains, and everything. Now, what had happened in past is that this particular customer that we were working with, it was a large engagement, so 100 plus people that were working on, and we were servicing this customer from two geographic locations, like two different cities. There were multiple squads in each cities, and they were working on it. Because of the city difference and the disconnect between them, uh, the hiring took place in different point of time. The kind of requirement was also a little bit different in both these locations. But what was one thing was common, that everybody was following a proper agile, I would say, like we were following to the t as per the best practices of agile that is possible, and we were doing quite good. Now we started moving from like a long 6 months release to a monthly release, then to a weekly release, then went to a daily release cycle and everything. And both these teams were doing pretty good in terms of the ability to kind of change, mature over a period of time. But what really took kind of showed the agility of the teams, like on one team, I won't say both the team, one team really showed the agility over the other, is when the customer decided that this platform that we were kind of working on has aged, and they would like to redevelop or re-architect the entire platform and do it from scratch. Now that was a very interesting project for all of us. Obviously we took it as in a very positive light, at least in the management we took it in a very positive light when the customer gave that confidence to us that you guys only would be able to take it forward and do it. So we were quite happy and kind of excited about it. However, as I say, agility is easy. Agile is easy. Following the agile processes and methodology was easy. Again, agile was hard. The hard part was basically making the change in mindset. Now, all these people who were working on it, 100 plus people across, let's say, I won't give the breakup exact, but let's say 50 people in each location. In one location, people kind of really embraced this change. They were ready for this change. They were gaming for this change. Why these people, why there was a kind of a confusion, to be giving a background. All these resources who we hired for a particular skill. Now when the customer decided to change the entire platform, the entire redesign it, they decided not to use the same old technology, but obviously a more contemporary technology. This contemporary technology, none of the 100 people has ever worked, and the customer was willing to invest on these people, so that okay, you might take 3 months, you might take 6 months, but learn it, get on with it and move forward for it. Half of this team, they embraced it, half of the team did not embrace it. Obviously they had to do it. It was not a kind of a choice given, because this is the project that they are in. So they were not very open towards this change. Obviously it also included them moving towards more of a lean agile setup. Like you might have read the book by Eric Shies in terms of lean agile. So we were also changing the process in terms of making it more lean agile, making it more MVP based releases, making a kind of a entire DevSecOps processes and everything. So what happened after this 3 months, when this 3 months of this initial learning phase was over? In this beginning of this 3 months, sorry, I start from the beginning. When starting of this 3 months, what had happened, that everybody was new. So if there was any challenge, any small bit of piece of code or small bit of piece of function that need to be written, each team was asking the other person. And the way we had kind of organized this team is basically it was different. The entire squad was based on one location. So if you have a squad of 8 9 members, that is based on one location, and similarly you have another squad which is based on the other location. So in this way, in each location you have some 6 7 squads each at least. So what had happened in the beginning initial period, all were in the same line. Like everybody was asking each other like, how do I do this? I'm stuck here, and how do I kind of get over it? After 3 months, you could see a drastic difference in terms of the squad which was from the location A, I would say, location A, because they were much more confident. Their velocity had improved substantially in terms of delivering what is expected out of it. And in 6 months' time, it was as if they were the teacher and the others. The location B was the students. It happened in that different way. But before 6 months, when they were still using the old process, old technology, both were at the equal footing, comparable results. I would say B was even better than A. But after 6 months, it really changed the thing. Why did it happen? Why did this kind of thing change? Why did this kind of performance improved and everything? It's only improved because the attitude and the personal agility of the people that were there in that particular location for whatever reason they have been. It's an interesting case study, and it's a separate discussion what went right and what went wrong in terms of identifying resources for those projects in those two different locations. But what came out really substantially predominantly in front of our eyes is in terms of the agility at an individual level, at a team level, at a person level, the kind of significance it played. It was like I was living through it, so I could really understand that what kind of a change was happening, what kind of a impact it is having. Obviously the team location B, which was not agile, after 6 months they really gave up because they were not able, they understood that they have lost, kind of they are too far behind in the race, that they'll make a big difference, and they kind of never tried also at that point of time, so they started giving up, and you can see a lot of attritions and all those things happening. But team A, which really took on this new challenge, they really did something wonders for their own career, for their own goal, for their own good. The reason why they did something great for their own career or good is because they were obviously doing something on the new technology, on the new process in terms of following the lean agile process, making sure that in an MVP based release, we went to an idea which is called one idea, one commit, where in a typical agile you have one user story, so that one user story is itself, once it is done, it directly goes to production. You don't have to wait for the release to go into production. So it's like the moment you commit, maybe if everything goes well, in 4 hours time that code might be in production. So team A went to that kind of a level of maturity where the team B was really struggling, and that was no different, and nothing changed except and until there's about the personal agility part of it. And definitely the scrum masters, the leaders, official leaders, the unofficial leaders, everybody had a role to play, because some were able to take it really positively, some were not being, or took it in a kind of a different light, that okay, I have 5 years of experience in X technology, why are you telling me to change my technology stack to something even if that is more advanced or more contemporary? But those kind of challenges took place, and you really kind of see the difference. Obviously we manage team be in a different way, so that they were able to come up in 6 months time, not in 6 months time, but maybe in a year's time they were able to come up to a certain level. But this, that made at least me or anybody, my managers and everybody, realize that how critical the agility part takes part in a entire person's development or an entire team's development. The processes, the ceremonies, everything is okay, it's required, but the other part is very different. Coming back to the current time, this is even more important, because we don't know what is going to happen, maybe even 6 months down the line. I'm pretty sure if you would have been sitting in the month of December or January of this year, we would have said, yeah, we have heard of COVID, and that's something that is happening somewhere in China, and some other countries are little bit paranoid about it. But I don't think that's kind of, we have seen swine, we have seen the other flus that came about a decade back, and kind of nearly it never took it took up, even in case of SARS and everything. So we will always, I would have, at least I would have said in January that okay, there's nothing to worry. It's kind of 2020 will be a year which will be again something which is very normal. But now it's completely different. Nobody would have been able to predict it. So what's going to happen in 6 months time, nobody really knows. Somebody can kind of make a guess, might be right, it might be wrong, but in reality nobody knows. So what it really matters is, as a manager, how am I able to make sure that my agility is always there, that I'm able to change, and how do I ensure that the entire team that we have is agile enough, has the ability to kind of change, has the kind of ability to adapt to these different circumstances, and take benefit out of whatever you throw at them. So that becomes a very critical part of it. So that's what I learned, what I experienced 2 years back. That's what I kind of relating it now in these times, in these changing times, I would say. And that time it was a kind of a change from a customer point of view. Now this change is from the entire world. So moving on. So what I'm talking about it. So what I'm talking about it is basically one, team agility is more important than following process. You can teach a process, as I say, have attitude, train for skills. You can teach a person. There are two type of people. I would say one is basically a person who will has a skill gap, and the person who has a will gap. If you have a skill gap, obviously you put all your might behind him just to make sure that the skills goes there. And it's, trust me, nobody is an Einstein in your team. Nobody is a rocket. Is kind of, I won't say it's an Elon Musk in my team, but everybody is good. Everybody is 19-20 kind of a position. So if somebody is 19, the other person is 20. So you invest in it in terms of ensuring that they have the right agility mindset in them. Process will definitely follow. So that's the least of the worry. Second is agile, as the entire discussion is, agility in attitude matters most, especially in changing times. Times are always changing. It was changing 5 years back. Also, we were hearing that in this changing times, changing time, Shakespeare would have also written. But now the kind of the pace of change is phenomenal. It's like nobody could have anticipated. So that's kind of a changing time. So your agility also needs to change at that kind of a speed. And last but not least is what we talked about in the first. Agile is hard. Agile is easy. Agile is hard. In real terms, actually, it is agile is easy. Agility is hard. So we have to focus on agility because that's the harder part, and that's what kind of we have to kind of ensure that the entire team has. There are different ways of doing it. There are ways of kind of sensitizing them. There are ways of training people. There are ways of encouraging people so that the agility quotient comes up. Once the agility quotient comes up, the rest becomes quite easy in terms of how you kind of kind of make sure that whatever is thrown at the team is able to do it. And trust me, the reason why agile took place or kind of started happening is because the fundamental concept of agile is basically change is going to happen. So that's the reason why agile took the prominence that it has today, because change is going to happen. If change is going to happen, we have to make sure that we have people who are willing to accept that change, who are looking forward for the change. Somebody who is not kind of sitting and kind of let it go kind of an attitude. People who are looking for a change, because agile talks nothing but change. With that, I would like to kind of stop here and kind of move to the next part, which is my last part, where I've kind of it's a Q&A. So talked about some of the changes, some of the reasons why we need to change and where we need to focus on, not only on the process, not only on the methodology, but it's in terms of the people, in terms of the ability and attitude to change and how it is important. So if there's any questions, please let me know. Would be more than happy to answer.
All right. I have a question to you, Shiladitya.
Yep, please.
I think we have two questions right now. So yeah. So let's take the first question from Nupur. So Nupur Patak, we always talk about attitude change or mindset change. How significant keeping patience is in this process, since it is not
Sorry, Rohit. Your voice is too low. I couldn't hear it.
we
Voice
always
is very low.
we always talk about attitude change or mindset change. How significant keeping patience is in this process, since it is not an overnight thing.
Right. So patience is something which is, I think, it's a very good question. So patience and change is not two related things. You cannot expect a change overnight. At the same time, you cannot say that okay, this is the way it is and let it go, and kind of let this be the process to it. So patience, yes, definitely patience is important, because if you don't have patience, nothing will change. So if you have a patience, then things will change. And that's also a similar line or the kind of a word that we typically hear. To see things change, you need to have patience, because what you need to see is like, am I doing something better than what I did yesterday? even if it is like 0.01%. If that is true, if I'm doing a little bit harder today than I what did yesterday, I'm changing. And that's where the patient comes in, because if I'm impatient, I would expect 100% improvement today versus yesterday. But I'm not. We should not be expecting 100% improvement today versus yesterday. Am I looking at a 1% or a 0.1% improvement today versus yesterday? If it is true, we'll in agile we all know incremental change, and this is what is called incremental change. It's just a 0.1% improvement than what I did yesterday. I'm incrementally changing myself.
All right.
Hope that answers.
So yeah, we have one more question from Siddharth.
Rohit,
Hello.
your
Yeah.
voice is not audible, so I'll read out the questions for Siddharth. Shiladitya.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. So the next question is from Mukesh. Do you think that hiring for a virtual team has its own criteria? If not, how do you get the agility when none has interacted face to face?
So, hiring for a virtual team is definitely, I would say, a little different than what you would do when you're sitting on top of them or kind of next to them. There are a lot of managers who want to sit on top of their resources and kind of hire people later. But when you're sitting virtually, it's practically impossible, even if you try to do kind of always be on your computers and try to see what they're doing. What is more important is, again, I'll go back to the fundamentals of agile. In agile, fundamentals say that you have a self organizing team. Now, if I ask a question, how or why do the founders of Agile say that it has to have a self-organizing team? What does it mean of a self-organizing team? Self-organizing team means that people in that team are self-motivated, skilled enough, and has the right attitude to organize themselves. So one of the critical thing is that they should have the maturity and attitude, and the mature mostly the maturity and the attitude to kind of organize, to have a self organized. Now if you really take let me give you a very basic example. If you really take a lot of freshers, like generally all the youngsters, but when they come into the projects, one of the critical challenges that many of the managers will say that, and I'm pretty sure all the people who have managed freshers, they will say that it's very difficult to manage them because they are not coming together all the time. They are Everybody is thinking of going to some party, going doing some interesting things. They're still in the college mode. Now, if you really want to do an agile, you would need to have a self-organizing team. And to self-organizing, two things required. One is the ability to organize themselves in terms of the attitude and the skill. And the second is a common vision for them. Now, if you have a common vision which is strong enough, and if you have a people who have the attitude to kind of and the maturity to work independently, that's what you will look into in terms of having a online team or a virtual team. It's not in terms of how that person presents himself or herself in front of a customer physically. Of course, that person needs to speak, but in terms of body language, but definitely in terms of his ability to kind of work with a team, collaborate, communicate, whether it's written or verbal, whatever it might be, and get things done. So that's what you'll be looking towards it rather than anything else. I would not bother much about what kind of a marks that person has got in his school, college, whatever, because that's past, that history. History can only be a guide to what is going to happen, or it can be measured what has happened, but it cannot be the only yardstick for future, right? So I will only give it that kind of a weightage, not 100%.
Okay, so next question is from Shweta Jaiswal. She is asking, what do we do to enable agility in ourselves? Three actions that we should take.
So one thing I would say is, like as I said earlier, is I would really urge each and everybody. Is like there was a kind of years back, I would say there was a teacher of mine, not in terms of my professional thing, but in sports, there was a teacher of mine. He said he gave this the he was the thing he taught me is like, whenever you come to a class, try to give 1% extra or 5% extra than what you give in the last class. So my that is kind of, that word really sunk into me. So today what I try to do is I try to do 1% higher than what I did yesterday. And if I do that on an ongoing basis, in 6 months time, in 3 months time, I'll be a totally different person. and that's kind of brings, that's nothing but agility. So if I would say only one thing, if you want to do it, you just have to basically know which direction that you have to go. So that clarity needs to be there. You don't know how, what are the different obstacle, what kind of course you will take to go to that goal, but at least you should have a direction, which direction I should be moving on. And towards that direction, today's effort should be, or today's effort, whether I'm saying time or whatever it is, time is not a good criteria, but today's effort should be 1% more than what I did yesterday. If I'm doing this thing, I'm home.
Okay. Thank you, Shiladitya. Thank you for your great session. It was a wonderful learning. So
Thank you.
that's all we
Pleasure's
have
all mine.
questions. Yeah. Thank you,
Pleasure's all mine.
Shiladitya. Yeah.